Hey, 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 self storage. Welcome to episode 72 of Gabfocus. Melissa, how are things in rainy Chattanooga?
We're gonna dig the boat out of the basement later. We don't have a boat. I think we have a kayak somewhere. So,
Shout out 12 inches of rain in East Tennessee.
yes.
It's not been raining nonstop in Knoxville and Chattanooga for the last like 2 or 3 weeks. Crazy.
Hmm.
But welcome all of our fellow friends, Gap Focus friends. We've got folks from Hawaii to Alberta, Canada, to Jacksonville, Florida. This is going to be a fantastic episode. I think it's a very relevant topic considering what's going on with the state of the industry between supply, demand, and all the headwinds and tailwinds. So I'm excited to dig into it. So welcome to episode 72. We're going to talk about optimizing occupancy. I think this is a fantastic topic, and when we were looking at the agenda and looking at what we wanted to discuss today, there was only really like a handful. It was a very short list of people that we thought would be qualified, and I thought no other than the storage sweeper himself from 6 years old on, former CMO of T-Mobile. Andrew's family has been in self-storage since the 1980s, so for 40 plus years, they've been doing self-storage in Washington, Kitsap County. So welcome to the Got Focus stage. Andrew Sherrard, how are you, good friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here, and it's great to talk to you and Melissa and the whole crew out there about how we think about occupancy and some ideas for making it better.
We're stoked to have you. So the real quick, beyond the sweeping out storage units and the T-Mobile residency that you had there, give us a 30-second intro to Andrew. Who are you, and what are you most excited to share today?
You know what? I'm most excited to share how I think about it. I think about occupancy like I do most of my businesses with a kind of a systematic approach, and so I want to share that because I think the specifics may not be exactly applicable that we found here because we're in one little upper left corner of the country, and the experiences everyone have it can be different, and the competitive situation can be different, but hopefully the system and the principles work well. So yeah, I grew up here and I didn't start at six. My parents weren't quite that hardcore. I did start in the sixth grade though. I
Sixth
was
grade,
sixth
yes.
grade. I was sweeping out units and watching my mom sign leases on the hood of her Volkswagen Rabbit. Remember that? The diesel Rabbit. Um, so from there, I went to West Point, was in the Army, did a bunch of things with that, and then decided to get out and do the kind of corporate gig. And so I've done marketing and product for about 20 years at Clorox and Gallo and finally at T-Mobile and did all kinds of jobs. And what I will tell you is whether your revenue goal is a billion or 20 billion, like it was for me at T-Mobile, or whatever your unit is, or $1,000 or $100,000, the principles you use to drive the business are the same.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
after a while, they're all just numbers, and it's about working with a team and understanding what those numbers tell you. Use them as a roadmap to get the results you want.
What a way to kick off this
Love it.
episode, Melissa.
Do you just want to start going through the agenda now on your own and we'll just sit here and
We'll
listen?
just sit back and
No,
watch.
no, you guys are experts. You know this audience. Love to have you guys walk us through it and kind of go from there.
I love it, man. Well, y'all, real quick, Gap Focus, of course, is brought to you by our teams here at StoragePug in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Lighthouse Storage Solutions in Chattanooga. We love doing this. We've done this. This is the 72nd episode,
Yep.
and this is in addition to the Gap Fest that we did and the Gap Focus Self Storage podcast. So this is a lot of fun. Today's topics, though, of course. If this is your first time joining us, which I saw a few names that I hadn't recognized before, so welcome. Glad y'all are here. You really chose a fantastic episode to hang out with us. We'll go for about an hour. Melissa and I, our jobs are very easy. We ask the hard questions, and then Andrew is going to answer those questions as our guest expert today. Today, we're going to talk about understanding occupancy. We're going to talk about how to increase your occupancy, and then once you have it, how to manage your occupancy. Real quick tip. If you have a question that you want asked on the live episode, make sure you put it in the Q&A tool. Melissa and I will monitor that as there are questions being asked. We'll make sure we sprinkle them in. If you ask them in the comment section, which you're welcome to, your fellow, attendees or y'all can all chat, and I'd love to see that. But Melissa and I might not see those. So if you want Andrew to answer your question, put it in the Q&A. So without further ado, Melissa, let's get it started.
All right, Andrew, let's start by explaining those terms. We see them on all our reports, the unit occupancy, the area occupancy, and the economic. Can you talk about the differences between those?
Yeah, sure. So, unit occupancy is kind of what you probably think of it. It's if you have 100 units at your site and 60 are occupied, you're going to see 60% is going to be your unit occupancy. And pretty straightforward. It can go up and down when people move out or people move in. That's pretty much what you do. Now, sometimes you may also have other categories where you have, remember, it's your total unit. So you might have offline units that are under maintenance, or maybe there's some reason you don't want to have that unit being used by someone. Maybe it's a company unit. So usually when I think about them, I try and think of the total units, because you want to know what your occupancy is for your total, even if those units are not available for someone to rent right away. Then thinking about area occupancy, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like. So you're going to look at what is your total area. So if you have a 10 by 10, that's 100 square feet. You got 10 of those, it's 1,000 square feet, and you're just going to add up all the area possible in your facility. So as you think about it, you're going to see that your smaller units, your unit occupancy could be higher than your area occupancy if you have a lot of smaller units rented that take up less area, and the reverse is also true. So if you end up, you're renting all these big 10 by 30s and 10 by 20s and 10 by 10s, and you got a bunch of 5 by 5s, which is a common thing I've experienced, especially when you're stabilizing a facility, where some of those smaller units don't tend to go right away. And so they're 25 and your area occupancy will be higher. So it's going to be the total occupied area of your units over your total area for that facility. And then finally, economic occupancy is really digging into thinking about what your potential revenue is for any given kind of site. So if you think about this again, think about your standard, your base rate is probably the most common way to think about it. With SiteLink, it might be called something else in other property management systems, but it's kind of whatever somebody walking in today, what rate they would pay. And you're going to multiply that amount times the unit that it is for. So again, let's take that 10 by 10, it's $100. It's going to be $100 in terms of total economic occupancy for that unit. So if it's occupied at $90 because maybe they had a discount, or maybe they're an older customer and they didn't come in at that rate, that's going to be $10 below for that unit. Then you add that up across all the units, and you're going to be able to see. And they're all important, and they all tell you different things. But your unit occupancy is a good, quick measure of how you should think about, okay, how many of these have I rented? Your area occupancy is just, am I leaning more toward my bigger or my smaller units? And your economic occupancy, how well am I doing at capturing the total potential demand in terms of revenue? Because occupancy and revenue are two sides of the same coin, and you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. You could get 100% occupancy tomorrow just by offering everything for free. I'm sure you would fill up really, really fast, but it wouldn't work very well from a business standpoint, because we got expenses and payrolls and all kinds of things. So you want to think about that revenue as another measure. And the other thing that's a little tricky with economic occupancy, as soon as you move the base rate, as soon as you take a change in your street rate, it changes the economic occupancy. So you need to kind of look at that over time and look at it kind of with a bit of a grain of salt. One other thing it points out to you, though, that's really important to think about is for your current customers, what are they paying relative to what you could get from somebody coming out? Now, for a lot of us during COVID, you were able to take up your street rates way up, and many of your customers were below, so you could kind of keep taking their rates up. And today, or maybe right after COVID, the reverse happened last year, probably, right? You probably had more customers below or above your street rate than before. So it's all there's always a lot of balancing between occupancy and revenue, both for new customers and for current customers.
Love it. That That was perfect.
Yeah, that was scientific. That was textbook. Well done.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so Andrew, like, what does it have to be so complicated? Do you have to track unit, area, economic? Like, you have to like monitor all three of those, or is there like one that rules them all? Like, talk us through that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you decide which of those three figures to like optimize to?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tommy. So when I try and think about kind of the business overall, kind of how it's working together holistically. And so maybe the first thing when I think about this, I really think about kind of leads, conversion, and measurement. And the occupancy piece you were talking about is really in kind of that third bucket under measurement. But before I dive into measurement, I really want to think about what is my overall business strategy and what are my business goals? And how does everything fit into those? So what is my product? What does my site look like? What are the features and benefits I have on there? Where am I going to price this? And how am I going to, kind of put my cost to match the revenue that I'm expecting to get? And then furthermore, how am I going to staff it? What's my team going to look like? And how do those all need to fit together? So then the way I think about it is I'm setting those goals at the beginning of each year for where I'm going to target my revenue, where I'm going to target my occupancy, what move-ins I need, what move-outs I need, how many leads I need, and what kind of conversion I need to expect from our team and our system to be able to deliver those things. So for me, I try and simplify it down a little bit. I think a lot about all those different variations, but I find it hard to track economic occupancy daily or weekly or even monthly. So what I end up doing is trying to simplify. I think about where my economic occupancy will land, but I more think of in terms of revenue. And I say, this is my revenue target for the year. And to hit this revenue target, I'm going to need to have this many move-ins, which means I'm going to need this conversion rate and this many leads. Because move-outs are pretty steady. One great thing about storage is that you can absolutely predict pretty well what you're going to get in a given month. It's seasonal, but it's pretty steady.
Hmm. So if your occupancy is lower than you want, or maybe it's still declining, like some people in our poll said earlier, what are what do you recommend checking on first if you're seeing a bleed in your occupancy?
Right. So this gets back to kind of a couple of things to realize about our category that'll be a little context setting first, which is in storage. And I love storage because storage people love to help each other out. They're fun. They're excited about making people's lives better who need storage, and they're really cooperative, which has not always been true in all of the industries that I've been in. But one thing that's
Right.
interesting about this, we don't create demand; we just kind of find it, right?
Mm.
Find it. So the key is looking in the right places for demand. You can't create a new opportunity for storage. That happens way before you when somebody moves or something
Hmm.
happens in their life, some change. So you can't create demand. What you can do is make sure that for the people that are in your market, if they're 1 mile away or 2 miles away, or maybe if you're really appealing, if they're 5 or 10 miles away, then you can appeal to them. So you can appeal to more of them, but you can't actually create demand like you could in food or beverage or entertainment. So that's first. The first thing I'm going to do actually, Melissa, is I'm going to go and I'm going to look at my data, and we do this weekly. We have the same set of things we look at every week, and I'm going to go like, well, is it leads that are the problem or is it my conversion that are the problem? And then from there, I'm going to start diagnosing. So the first thing I'm probably going to do, if I'm not getting the move-ins, are a result. The revenue is a
Right.
result. The activities we can take as people in the business is we can get better at how we attract leads and appeal to more people, or we can get better at how we convert those leads when they do show up. And those are two things. And there's a bunch of things you can do under those. But first, I'm going to diagnose, do we have a lead problem or a conversion problem? And how
Mm.
does it compare to the goal I set at the beginning of the year or the beginning of the quarter?
Hmm. Love it.
That's
Um,
a killer take. Yeah. So
so
Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Yep.
Well, Sue had just asked about she has a Q&A in here. Are we
Yes.
seeing a surge again in rentals versus vacates? Can you give us the results of the poll that we took earlier? Did anyone else add anything in or
I'm actually going to relaunch it now that we've got the full audience here. We only had about
okay.
40 people at that time. We have almost 300 people now. So I'm going to relaunch the
I
poll.
think that goes along well with what we're talking about right now. So,
Yeah. So Sue, earlier in the poll, 59% of the people said that May 2025 was better than May 2024. But I'm about to relaunch the poll. I'm excited to see what the rest of the audience says.
I wish I were in their camp. We're about the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
mhm.
We're about the same on leads. And uh, and conversion is a little lower than we were last year. So move-ins are slightly below where we were
Okay. Okay.
last year. But back to your question, Melissa, I think the implication is okay. So let's just kind of start from the top, right? Leads. What if you have a
Mhm.
lead problem? What can you do? So the first thing you're going to want to look at is how much are they down, and you can look at this, a couple ways. Is it trending down, week over week? Is it trending down by, if you have more than one site? Is it trending down in one particular area? Are there potentially a couple of trade areas that are slowing down a little bit? And
Mhm.
then you have some pretty good options to kind of think through where you're what to do next. So probably the first thing that I'm always thinking about is, when you think about storage near me that we type into Google, which as somebody in the industry you should be doing all the time, it's kind of the ultimate I need storage now signal, right? And so you want to do that.
Yep.
You want to do that. I believe in operating as much as you can as a customer. You can't quite do it all the time if you've been in the industry for a while, but clear your cache, use your phone, search on new browsers that you don't use for other stuff, and start seeing how your customers or shoppers really are going to see you the first time. So the first place that I think about, if we want some short-term impact, um, is how is my paid advertising doing, specifically Google search, which is the best, short term in terms of advertising that you can do. Because basically you have really some short-term things you can do, which is advertising and pricing, and then other things you can certainly do in terms of driving demand, but they're going to be more medium-term and long-term in terms of their impact on your business. And all you're doing, remember, we can't create demand, but we can appeal to a larger geography. So we can go from 1 mile to 2 miles. And
Mhm.
the first thing you can think about in pricing, of course, is your street rate, right? And we use Veritech pricing, which is really helpful to understand how do we compare to competitors, how are we moving in, very sophisticated algorithms. So you can think about
Mm.
that. You can also think about concessions, which would be things like 50% off next month, moving for $1, next 2 months free. All those kind of things are short-term promotions that you get at the time of sign up, classic across all kinds of different industries. And then a third area you can also think about in terms of pricing is promotions. These are a little trickier in the sense because people are expecting a price and they're expecting a price promotion. But if you're going to advertise, a value add, we have a free move-in truck when you move in or something else like that, it's a little harder to make awareness around that. So price and Google advertising, those are kind of your quick hits.
Mhm.
I love that. So, I mean, there's a whole realm, there's a whole like sphere of like, I don't get enough rentals, so maybe it's a marketing thing, right? Or
Mhm.
I don't get enough rentals, and maybe it's a demand thing. And like you mentioned, you can't create demand, but you can appeal and capture what's there.
Yeah.
Focus inwardly for a minute. Like, what are some operational things where we can look in the mirror and wake up today and say, I'm gonna look in the mirror and I'm gonna brush my teeth and comb my hair, do it better today.
Right.
What are the operational issues that can impact or maybe
Sure.
cause low
So
occupancy?
now you're getting to my favorite because the first place I would go if I weren't getting the results I wanted on move-ins, I would look at there's leads and then there's conversion, right? And
Hmm.
so
Yep.
I would look to conversion first because it's your highest ROI, your highest return on investment, return on your time. And there's a bunch of things you can do. The most basic I would start with is answer the phone. How many missed calls are you getting? What happens when a missed call happens? Does it roll to your internal call center? Does it roll to an external call center? Like, are you scheduled appropriately? Do you have the right team available and ready to answer the phone? So answer the phone. A close second to that, might even be a zero. It's so foundational is have a great website. It's your front desk 24/7. I don't need to
Yes.
tell you that, Tommy, but it's like absolutely crucial. And look at your website. Like the thing I push Tommy on all the time, because we're a longtime customer, is how do we get better conversion? And you can always improve conversion. What are the things you're doing to improve conversion on your website? What are the things you're doing on your Google business page? I know I'm a devoted listener of the podcast and you hear this a lot, but it is so crucial. Can you experiment a little on either of those things? Can you put in some new videos? Can you put in are your promotions both on your website, your price concessions, to use the same term, like 50% off or whatever thing you're promoting? Is that also on your Google page? Can you make a video about that you can put on your Google page? These are all free. And the other thing you want to be focused here on conversion in driving these things home is that it allows you've already spent all the money and energy to hire people and train folks and to set up your website, continue to make them better. That is absolutely the most important short-term things you can do. The other thing I would say is, this sounds like a basic one, but I think you want to measure and set goals. So you want to be looking at how many move-ins am I expecting this month? Well, then how many move-ins am I expecting this week? And how many move-ins would I expect today? Trends tend not to get better. And when you observe them, to quote an old mentor of mine, hope is not a strategy. And you need to do something to change the trend. You're as business team members, we're paid to change the trend. The business would run on its own without us. You could have a website and it would keep going. We're paid to change the trend. So don't rely on hope, like maybe it'll be better next week. Take action. And probably the fourth area I would talk about, and this is a little longer, more medium term. So short term, it's can you update the website, update Google? Can you make sure you're answering the phone and really understand operationally where it's going when it's not answered? And then are your concessions that you already have everywhere? Third, the other short-term one would also be price, right? You could get more aggressive on price. The other thing is, at one point in my career, I was always really reluctant to change things or try things. And what I realized over time, especially when I was on the hook to make things change, was you're not making the decision forever, you're making it for today. You're making the decision for today. If it doesn't work, a week later you can pull it out, or a month later you can pull it out. You haven't tanked your business. You haven't. So I've flipped to go try things and try them in a way you can tell if they're working. So if you have two sites, do it at one site. If you only have one site, do it on a subset of units that have a lot of vacancy. You have a lot of availabilities, and hold back on another group of units that you have a lot of availability on. Don't do it, and see what the difference is. That'll start telling you something. Not everything can be measured perfectly, but it can be measured pretty well, and it can give you an indication. So those are the things I would do immediately, Tommy. I'd and I would try stuff today. What can I do today? So those are
Sign me
the
up. Will you come and do that for a lot of the operators? So the answer to the phone is crazy to me. So there's a 30-second story. There's a person that we don't work with yet that wants to work with us and very much needs help because they're suffering from occupancy issues and marketing and all this kind of stuff. But we have been calling them to their store number, right? Not their cell phone, because they requested, hey, don't call me on my cell, call me at the store, right? I have record that we have called them 8 times.
Mhm.
They don't know that we're not a lead, right? 8 times.
Yeah.
Their voicemail box isn't set up, Andrew, so you can't even leave
Yeah.
a message.
You don't
Yeah.
even know if you've reached the right
Yeah.
company.
It's
That's
brutal,
tough. And
right?
most people don't leave a voicemail.
And most people don't, right? So
Today people don't leave voicemails. They
don't even
generally
leave. Yeah. So of course, if you are not answering your phone, and we've called from different people have called them, right?
Yeah.
So I've personally called them. other people at StoragePug have called them. And so it's not like they've, blacklisted one of our numbers. It's just like, yeah. And so you really need help if you're not answering your phones. I love that you started there because that's an immediate improvement that I think a lot of folks, I think people will be shocked how many missed calls you actually have.
If you track it, it's pretty
Very
amazing. Even if
telling.
you try really hard, you still are going to miss 10 to 20% of your calls. And that's a lot over the course of a week and a month,
Yeah.
even if you're really on it. I mean, and there's always a trade-off. We happen to have an internal call center, which is really helpful because sometimes people are out on site. You also want someone answering who's ready to answer the phone and have the conversation.
We've been
Um,
having that conversation over here in the chat. I've
yeah.
seen a lot of people like
Yes.
answer the phone well. Shannon
Ooh.
said, don't answer the phone when you're trying to also drag a dirty
Yeah.
mattress out of your unit
I
because you're
I I
huffing and puffing.
complete yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree with that, Melissa. I think that's
Hmm.
super important. So you got to be ready to you want to be ready to sell, to listen really well, to be in a place where you can have empathy and
Yeah.
understand what is this person, what is their situation, what do they need to store, what do I have that I can offer. I love the best managers that you had on the other day, just talking about how important that is. The script is a
Hmm.
guide, it is meant to be a guide, but doing it um, you can't do that if you're in the middle of something else. So that means
Right.
having the operational system in place that
Hmm.
that calls go somewhere. Going to voicemail is not great.
Right.
If it does go to voicemail, obviously then follow up with it. But I would say you'd want it to go to a live person. And I'm a fan of always closing on the phone. If someone's ready to rent, close now. Close on the website, close in the
Yeah.
close in the chat, close wherever you have the capability.
Yes, wherever you can close it. No, I 100%
Yeah.
agree with you there. No, so I love all of that. This is beautiful. Related to a comment you made about pricing as a lever that you can pull, right, from an
Yeah.
operational point of view. Wilson asked in the Q&A here, have you seen an increase in concessions in order to get rentals? So are you seeing discounts and concessions being more utilized these days so you can capture that lead?
I'd say it was more for us last year, but that's really just exactly down to the market. I would imagine based on what I've seen nationally from those reports that certain pockets there's more last year than less. I would also say that, the big news is really what the REITs are doing with their real teaser, what I call teaser rate pricing. It's very akin to what Comcast and the cable guys done. And let me just tell you that story doesn't end well from a customer satisfaction standpoint. I
Yeah.
much prefer to go down the concession route where you're clear, like, hey, there's a promotional rate. Here's what it is. Here's what your regular rate, and make sure people aren't just disclose that, but understand that. I've been in wireless where you can disclose a lot of stuff, and if people don't understand it, they're still calling care. They're still really upset if
Hmm.
things change on them unexpectedly. So we haven't seen more of that, but I think in the industry, more the really low, I'd say more common has become the really low street rate pricing, I'll call it, or off the street price with an aggressive 6-month increase is what we've seen. There's still a few other things you can do though, even within we haven't emptied the bag of tricks quite yet. Kind of medium term, I would say. A couple of those would be just being really great at sales conversations and sales skills and being awesome
Mm.
about it. So what this means is, what this looks like to me is really having empathy, needs-based selling. I think you've had a bunch of guests on here who are way more expert than me about the actual details of how you do that with individual customers. But one of the most basic things I think also is you got to record the calls. You need to get some game tape for your team to
Yeah.
listen to, and then they can go back and listen. You got to practice and coach those things.
Hmm.
There's, services like Skill Check out there with Carol Mixon and others who are there to do mystery calls, which is also good. So you can get an independent evaluation. We do a weekly call every week led by our DM where we pick out a call. We have the folks who are on that week listen to the call and kind of give each other feedback. We also have done practice with peers because, even the best players and actors and everyone who performs, and a phone call and a sales call is a performance. Make no mistake,
Mm.
it is a
It
performance.
is.
Being able to perform well means practicing a lot. Even if you've been in the NBA for 15 years, you're still practicing your free throws. You've done it hundreds of thousands of times, and you're still like working on that skill. And the same is true with sales call. And everybody has good ones and bad ones and can learn a lot from both. And so And the other thing I would say, set goals and measure around that as well. I think obviously that's not something you can change this week or next week, but over time, I think you can have a really great impact. And it also helps you understand what are my strengths on my site? What are the great things about my site? And you can learn things from that that you can then apply up in your Google Business Review, up in your when you're talking about attracting more people. Um, the other thing I would say is that, well, a little longer bird is just putting into this system lead follow-up, right? What are your standards? Do you follow up within a half hour of the call? Do you follow up every 48 hours? What is the exact framework and system you're using to do that? How do you track it? Because it's only as good as you're tracking. There's a lot going on for an average site. Uh, and there's no average site, right? So there's a lot happening. I got to do a site inspection. I got to make sure everything's secure. Customer come in, they're upset about the rate increase, or they need to rent another unit. There's a lot happening. And so having some really thoughtful ways that you've put that into place for yourself or as a team, those are crucial. And then the last longer term one I would say on the conversion today, Tommy, would be really putting in value pricing. And the reason this is important is if you go back to your SSA demand study, about half the folks are really interested in the first place they call. They're not that price sensitive. They're probably service sensitive. And so you can upsell those folks. And at the same time, you can put a really attractive rate out on the website for your lower rate that for the price sensitive folks will go out. And so that's a way to actually both preserve revenue for the right people and keep your conversion up. So I
Mm.
think value price, but again, that takes a little bit of time and work to find someone who can help you do that and to put it in place because I've done it. It's a tedious setup process, but well worth it.
Incredible. No, I think the other comment you made that I have to call out here is the trends, right? The trends don't get better on their own.
Mhm.
The grass won't get greener on its own, right? Once the tree starts to wilt or the bush starts to wilt, it's a done zone unless you actively do something about that. I say this because we just got plants for the spring, and several of our plants are no longer part of this world.
They're not with us anymore.
They're not with us. We're teaching our 3-year-old the concept of death by saying the plant is now back. It's gone back to the earth.
That's
and
great.
and so,
Poor
but no.
child.
So I love that very much. I think that comment is very much. I'm going to hang on to that quote because I think it's very powerful. I think a lot of folks just kind of take the hope and pray approach and say, "Hey, this next month will be better. I won't make any changes." But
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
month will be better on its own. And unfortunately, I think that's the active part of of many business, but
Yeah.
especially in our business of self-storage. So love that. Well, Melissa,
So,
let's move this conversation forward and let's spend the next, little bit here talking about how to actually go about increasing occupancy. I know we've talked a lot about, I think everyone in this audience understands how to view it, how to measure it, how to manage it. Let's dive into some tips and tricks on how do we actually move this needle forward.
yeah, and the last thing you talked about was the value pricing, which I think is a good segue into the next piece, is talking about those street rates. What signs do you consider when you're talking about possibly increasing your street rates?
I look at how many move-ins I've had recently. I look at how many, what the occupancy is on that unit type. So how many availabilities of the inside heated 10 by 10s of the kind of same type of unit. And I look at what my competitors are doing. How close or far are they from me? Um, I always take it as a good sign when I see price increases from my competitors. I'm like, oh, the market is moving. And those are the major signals.
Okay. Yep, because that means their occupancy is likely going up too, which is a good sign of overall market movement. So
Hmm.
that while your occupancy is what is king in determining your rates, you really need to know what your competition's doing because that can give you a good insight. Um, how can adjusting rates boost your unit occupancy?
Yeah, you can essentially what's going to happen is the people who are calling you up are going to be more likely to rent with you. So if we go back to that basic idea that they're calling and they call one place and they hear a great price, they're more likely to take it. And especially if they're price sensitive and they've called around a few
Mm.
places and you got a better deal than the other guy, you're going to increase the number of units you get. If you get 3 or 4 calls for a 10 by 10 in a month and you've got a lower price, you're going to increase your conversion. We see it all the time, and it's true. And sometimes you may be a little reluctant because like, oh man, I'm going to lose too much revenue, but I'd much rather have occupancy than potential revenue.
Mm.
You can't reach the potential on the revenue unless you actually have the occupancy,
You
right?
cannot, you cannot.
Yeah. So, but with the fear of, you don't want to chase rates all the way to the bottom either. So, should you always match the lowest rate in town? If customer comes in and says, well, they have a 10 by 10 for $29 and you're asking $129, should you always just match that or go more on the sales side of here's my value, this is why I'm charging this amount? Like where do you fall in
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. I think you want to acknowledge the price, and this is where knowing what your competitor offers compared to what you offer, you definitely want to add in your value. I don't think you can be $100 away though from
Hmm.
where they're at. So I think you need to come down. You need to decide how closely what your bottom line threshold will be, and this is where I would use a concession probably more than change the rate completely. Be like, you know what? We've got a free moving truck, amazing security. We got all these things that are gonna, you're gonna love at the site, and we got this is a really good unit. That I know the one you're talking about. They're down the street, but man, they're tough to get in and out of. You do sell against them, and you say, "Let me give you 50% off the first month." I think
Mm.
if they're consistently there, you need to look at the street rate and not be too proud to be like, "Okay, I know mine's awesome, but they're taking the market down. I need to come down some." I don't think you have to go all the way down at all, but you can't be so far away that it no longer matters that you're all these amazing things.
Or if you know that your competitor is going to raise rates, 3 times the amount within the first 3 months, you can tell them that. Like, hey, yeah, that
Absolutely.
$29 looks really good today. But
Mhm.
what I've
Mhm.
experienced and customers have come to me because of this issue is that in 2 or 3 months, you're actually going to be paying more than you would, higher
Yeah,
than my rate.
that is a great point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
That's
you
a
can,
good
and that
cross sell.
yeah. And once they realize that, I think I'm seeing a lot more communication from owners that are taking that route. They're
You know.
they're saying, yeah, this is my rate, but you know what? I'll lock it in for 10 months. I'll lock it
Yep.
in for a year. We don't play those games. Like we're locally owned and operated. This is what you're going to get. There's no hidden fees. There's this, there's that. So they're playing more to marketing that side of their pricing strategy. And I think that that is a really beneficial and easy thing to
Yeah.
market.
Be
So,
Straight
unafraid
up.
to lock it in. And that's just highlighting your value and saying, let me actually tell you the truth about what you're going to get over there. Like
right.
over the course of time, it's not going to be $100 a month different. You're not going to save $1,200 in a year.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep, no, totally agree. And I'm in the comments here. I'm sharing a couple examples of PugPack who are doing this 12-month guarantee and kind of their way of communicating it. I think especially if you do offer this, why not promote it, right? Why not really blast it out there? And I'm just sharing a couple different options that folks are
Right.
using.
And this
One
is
of my
one you can get on that website. You can put on Google business page. More people
Mhm.
go to the Google business page than even your website. It is your
Yes.
front door. It's your
Yeah.
handshake with every single
My
customer.
gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So speaking to that, I saw a comment in here from Brett says, feeling a bit odd that we don't get that many phone calls as most of our tenants rent online. And so their phone calls are actually from, current tenants.
Mm.
Don't
Right.
worry about that.
That's great.
Congratulations to you.
Yeah.
If you're getting those rentals in, it doesn't matter. So don't feel bad because you're not getting the phone to ring necessarily. That just means your website is kicking butt.
That's
And
awesome, actually. Yeah.
let it keep doing it. Yeah, that way your managers can actually focus on running the property and helping out the tenants. So don't feel odd about that at all. I think that's just a testament to a really good site. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Spencer just said, yeah, use ChatGPT to do competitor analysis. Absolutely. Now that these AI agents and these services like Claude and ChatGPT, Perplexity, all of these services can now browse, search the web, right? They have previously about 8 months ago, none of them could like actually go into the internet and like pull up real results. They can all do that now, basically. So you can very easily get on there and say, hey, tell me about the top 10 competitors around this area in my neighborhood, or give them a street address or zip code, and
mhm.
then it will crawl those competitors' websites and reviews and say, hey, these are the top things about this particular company. And then you have to ask yourself again, this is that look in the mirror moment, right? Do I look like this? Do I
Right.
offer these things? Because maybe I don't. Maybe my gate is broken 3 times out of the week. Maybe I should look into that. Maybe I should call Aaron at Spider Door and get that replaced. Or whatever the situation might be. So yeah, Spencer, great recommendation. I think that's a great use case for deep research and
Yeah,
analysis.
that's true. The ability of them to also write things well for you in terms of the framework and do the competitive search is fantastic. Um,
Yes.
even create that chart for you. That someone put in the chat, like, hey, make that comparison chart so it's easy for people to understand. No matter what, when you're
Yep.
communicating to people, making it simple
Hmm.
and easy for folks to understand to really get the value that you have and the cost of the other one to make them comparable is really, really valuable. And those AIs can actually do a pretty amazing job at a lot of that.
They really can.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun, y'all. So yeah, I guess in this line of thinking of, I know I asked about, maybe the use of promotions earlier, but more specifically though, Andrew, like, are there types of promotions that you are seeing or discounts or concessions that you're seeing more frequently than others? And has those trends really changed over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Talk to us through the types of promos that you're seeing online or
Yeah,
even in store nowadays.
yeah. So I would say just they've changed. They were a lot less frequent during COVID, and they've become a lot more frequent now. It's kind of certainly the general trend. And we're seeing the same things a lot of folks are seeing with the teaser rates by the REITs, and then kind of leading into the half off, the 1 month off, 2 months free. I mean, what we like to use is really do that approach where you're offering the discount maybe on the second month or the third month because for basically that does help you kind of preserve the rent and also the occupancy, but also from an operational standpoint, it folks who can only move in if it's free are maybe not the kind of customers you want at your site. And so that can lead to other problems for other customers. So we just found that to be kind of a good mix of
Hmm.
what we offer. When I look around, I'm seeing similar things. I think a lot of opportunities around reaching out locally to doing community marketing and local marketing and B2B. Those are the kind of promotions that the referrals, especially don't forget your old customers, right? We see a lot of returning customers and you can absolutely run promotions with those folks as well. And you can do a lot of great referral programs right out of your sites. And I think those are ones that have great ROI that are gonna be really effective in terms of getting folks in. I guess one of the plug those to know how much are you willing to spend for a new customer. You only have to do this annually probably, and you're like,
Hmm.
hey, what am I willing to pay this year? Because it can inform you on, well, how much am I willing to discount? How much am I, because that's a cost. How much am I willing to put into a referral card, how much I'm willing to put into Google advertising, those kind of things.
Hmm.
The other things we've experimented with, we've even looked at direct mail for people doing kind of having life stage changes, new movers, people who are listing their house, people, you can even do direct mail to folks who have been on your website and abandoned their cart.
Yes. Hmm.
So there's a lot of those. I'd say early days on those in terms of what they're doing, and then but that's promotions. I got a few other ideas, but love to hear other things you're hearing, Melissa or Tommy, that you guys have seen out there.
Well, there's some discussion going on right now about the dollar move in versus the first month free, and that
Hmm.
Allison actually asked in the Q&A, and then there's a conversation that started over here in the chat. A lot of people have not had good success with that first month free or dollar move in because of the type of tenant that it attracts.
Yeah,
Like you mentioned. So I really like that first full month free maybe, or that
yeah,
second month free or half
Hmm.
off or
Half
something like
off.
that
yeah.
because it.
Two months, 50% off.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because it gives them more of, and the longer they stay with you, the longer they're probably going to
Hmm.
stay. So if you're extending that discount out, you're automatically like you're locking that tenant in a little bit more.
Yes.
So
Yep.
yeah, I like that. So Allison, I hope that helps
we
with your
we
question there.
we've been seeing a lot. I mean, because we see, on all the websites that we are, that we're privy to, we see a ton of 50% off 2 months, 50% off 3 months. Some of
Yeah.
our very generous lease up clients are 50% off 6 months.
Wow.
But that's a very specific niche use case. But really, it's that 50% off 2 or 3 months that we're seeing the most
Yeah,
common.
that's where
Mhm.
we've landed. We'll do 1 month. Sometimes we'll do two.
Exactly.
I haven't done three.
And I don't know this, Allison. I wonder. There was a while there where, I think, everyone knows like a quarter pounder with cheese, right? Everyone gets that, right? And then one of the burger joints wanted to do a third pounder with cheese, and then people bought less. They thought that a quarter pounder has more beef. That was a real case study that was done, right?
Yeah,
And I
I remember that.
wonder if like somehow subconsciously they see a dollar move in and that might actually equate to less than 50% off. Like, you know what I mean? Like not their brain they don't even stop to think and read. They just see, oh, dollar versus 50%. I'm going to take the 50% deal, even though technically they're paying more money.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
saw in
know
the
that,
chat. Yeah,
but I wonder if there is just from a messaging point of view, where people are just because they're not really no one like sits and reads a thesis and do deep research on their storage unit, right? They're looking at the price, they're looking at the promo. Can I move in now?
Mhm.
But I think that would be a cool survey or poll to do with real live storage tenants. So
yeah,
planting that as a seed, I think that's something
yeah.
we
Just
try to endeavor.
looking at a few things flying by in the chat. The 25% off 4 months, which honestly is less than, a lot of things, and it kind of stretches it out because you get a lot of people stay for 3 months, but you start to see that decline pretty quickly. So
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
Mhm.
inherently going to have less. I mean, anything you can do that stimulates demand and increases your conversion is going to be revenue positive when you
Well,
do
be
it.
careful that you're not extending your discount out too far because a
Hmm.
lot of tenants still come in with the mindset of, oh, I'm only going to need this for a month or two. So
Yeah,
if you're making your discount stretch over 4 months, I, as a first time tenant, may think, that doesn't do me any good because I'm only going to need it for a month or so.
true.
Which we
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
inherently is not true. Most of them stay for
Okay.
much
Yeah.
longer than, 1 or 2 months at a time. But, we want them to think that they're getting that big discount up front because that's when they think they need it.
And you know what?
So,
Depending on where you're at, you can test it and
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And
figure out which
and
works
test
best for you and for your team and everything.
Yeah, and test the difference. Like maybe you have two similar classes of units, do one half off for the first month, do one half off the second month, and see which one gets more response. Like you put that on
Yeah.
your website. So don't like you said earlier, Andrew, don't be afraid to try things and bounce it
Yeah.
because what works for you is not going to work in North Carolina,
Right.
or
Yep.
and it can be different down the street. So what
Yeah.
if you have 10 properties, what works for 3 or 4 of them is going to fall flat on the other two
Absolutely.
or three.
Right. And it may go
So
back to how you've set it up, what your objectives are, and those kind of things.
right.
Um, Also, just to plug, I saw someone also just to plug the referral program, like seriously giving a great experience and getting that referral engine going. Again, this is a longer term. This isn't going to change your conversion rate, tomorrow or even next week or next month. But
Right.
over time, if you're consistent, you give great give great experiences, you get those reviews up on Google, which is the way when your customers say, is there anything else I can, yeah, you've been so great. Thank you for, Melissa, for making this amazing. Oh, could I get you to do a review? That is
Hmm.
hugely powerful, as well as getting into the habit and the motion of doing the referral. And over time, that is super, super strong for your business. Just like
Yeah.
being able to tap into those folks. They are the best advocates for you, friends and family
Mm-hmm.
who have
100%.
used your services before.
Yep. So related to that, y'all, there's a question from Jeremiah. So this is more specific to SiteLink users, but the question is, what are some of the best practices on ways to track referrals? And his second comment was, we have a large customer base, but keeping up with the referrals has presented a challenge. Jeremiah, great question. So Andrew, like, what is your recommendation or best practice on tracking referrals?
Um, I stole one from one of your previous podcast guests. So we instead of giving a gift card or something like that, we give every referral a check, and then it's just like, a refund check. So then you can look at it through your financial, your QuickBooks is what we use, and probably most people do too. So having that
Nice.
check is a great way to do it. And then they come in and you can give it to them and thank them and have that personal moment. So I would say use that check because it creates a system for everybody. And then
Mm-hmm.
the site knows, oh, we got three of these. Let's send them on to the main office to get a check cut, and then we give them a check and we can get it to them. And I think that's one way to do it. In SiteLink, I don't think there's a great way, so it would mean tracking it separately
In
somehow.
your marketing information, you should be able to set up referrals as one of the marketing questions so that you can flag it as this came in through a referral. Just like how did you hear about us?
Right, you could do it as a marketing
Yeah,
source. Yeah.
set it up there so that you should always be asking that question at the time of rental anyway. And so if they say it's a referral, that gives you at least a number at the end of the year that you can say we had 50 referrals come in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was Stacy Maxwell, FYI, for
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
plug there.
Dude, that was a great one. I'd recommend everybody listen. I learned a lot from listening.
Yep. I'll put a link to it right here if you want to catch that one later, y'all. Stacy dropped some amazing bombs in that one. And one of the cool things they do is like just like Andrew said, instead of just giving a gift card or like rent credit is one of the worst things to give somebody, right?
Yeah, don't.
Make it a big deal. Give them a
Yeah.
$50, $100, $200 gift or like check so they can actually go buy stuff with
Right.
it. And they can
Yeah.
store it in your storage unit. Feed the consumerism beast.
Yeah, totally. I
Mhm.
mean, and the decisions you're making, like, even if it sounds scary to go up on some of these things, it's not pricing is not a forever decision. The amount of your referral program is not a forever decision. You're making that decision today. So maybe if you're not getting traction, take it up to a level where you will see some action. And then you can,
Yeah.
first be effective, then be efficient. Don't try and do it the other way. You'll never be able to see it if you don't
And
make
take
it big
those
enough.
take that opportunity when they come into your office to get the check or get the whatever however it is you're paying them. Make sure you do that social media post.
Yeah.
Like Stacy just mentioned in the chat, it's proof that you actually do pay for your referrals,
Yeah.
and that's going to get that ball rolling too. So,
No, it's great. I'd say the other area we haven't touched on, I'll just throw it out here. Don't underestimate the power of local signage. So somebody in the chat mentioned flags, but just your basic sign. If you track where people came from, I bet you'll be surprised at how many saw you driving around town. It can be 20 to 30% depending on the store. So invest in a really good one that's permanent and then switch things up because everything fades into the background for all of us. That's how humans work. So putting new banners up, putting new information, putting new promotions and being able to rotate through those, like local signage is a big deal. And doing it right and doing it well and knowing where being able to showcase your site so that your customers are the future customers of those people driving by.
yeah, drive-bys are still huge. And storage has this uncanny way of blending into everything around it until you actually need it, right? And so, like, you don't even notice that there's a storage on every corner until you need it. And then you realize, oh, there's, five right within spitting distance of me. So make sure that you've got some catchy signage. I love that. And make sure that if you aren't on that really well-traveled road and you're kind of off the beaten path, like put your signage where that traffic is.
Right.
So make sure you're actually capturing the traffic that you're missing out on if you're not in a great location.
Right.
Yeah. Mandy's been going door to door and spinning a sign at 5 o'clock traffic just to get
Wow.
Mandy, you go, girl.
Mandy, man,
Woohoo!
that is
I
awesome.
I respect it. Now, Melissa and I think Betty might have mentioned, yeah, so it looks like your customers prefer the rent credit. Hey, do what your customers prefer, right? Don't I think there's nothing's truly prescriptive for everybody, right?
Right.
So if your audience and your customers prefer the rent credit, you do you. But I think
You can
the
learn by doing. That's
learn
probably the biggest thing, right?
that's it.
Learn by
Yeah.
doing.
Learn by doing. I think the magic of the
And
benefit
then
for
do what
you
works.
of doing a check or making a bigger deal of it, yeah, it's just that potential photo op, the social media post, the warm and fuzzies, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But no, Mandy, I love the door, the sign flipping. You go do it, man. Uh, so Andrew, one last question, and maybe Melissa, maybe we can tackle some of the Q&A because there's still some good questions there.
Yeah, there are.
Um, One last question from our prepared list of questions is talk to us through and again, this is the concept of maintaining or managing occupancy, right? Talk through your tenants who might call you or stop by and say, "Hey, I notice that your rates online or on your website are less than what I'm paying today," or "I notice that you guys have a really nice promo online." How much, like, what does that conversation look like? And then how much are you, doing price matching to your own prices to existing tenants? Um,
Right.
Talk to us through how Reliable handles that and what maybe some best practices might be.
Yeah. So first of all, it's a tough conversation, right? It's a hard one to have, especially if they're way above your current street rate, your base rate. And so we're going to be honest with them about our policy. About we've tried to be transparent about it. Hey, we do raise rates, and this is ours. We do it every 9 month, first after 9 months, and then every year after that. Generally, we keep it within this range. Boy, it looks like this one may have gotten a little out of whack, and kind of meet them halfway if that's necessary, or just explain to them like what those costs are driven by, whether it's hey, we're having to take pay raises and all those kind of things. Our costs are going up, so we pass some of those along to you. Not all of them, but some of them. And then emphasize the value that you do have, very similar to that initial price conversation,
Hmm.
um, and make sure they're getting value. And if they're a long-term customer, we do make some concessions sometimes because the vast majority of people don't come in. So some that do, it's really important to them, and it's a problem. And we want to make storage stress-free. That's what we're about. And so if this is getting in the way of that, we're gonna take their price down a little bit.
So it's like is it just a concession one time, or is it you actually lower the rate, or does it just depend?
No, yeah, we'll lower the rate.
Okay.
Lower the rate some. Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to flip over to some of these
Yeah,
questions
let's
here?
look at some of these questions. Yeah, I think there's some really good stuff
Okay.
on
I
here.
liked Gary's.
Let's do Gary's.
This is
Yep.
back about the trends that we were talking about earlier. When it comes to looking at data trends, how big of a sample set are you looking at? And also, are you looking at week over week or month over month? Like, let's talk more about the trends a little bit.
Sure. So most simply, I've set it up. We do it in Google Sheets. You can do it wherever you want, but I think it's important to decide how you're going to look at the business and then look at it the same way pretty consistently over time. So we've been
Mm-hmm.
looking at it the same way for a couple of years, and we update it each week, and then we look at it because then you get familiar with it. You know what you're looking at. You know what's
Yeah.
important, and so you already have a story. You know what? Oh, I know what Paul's was doing this week. I bet you I know what Port Orchard. Oh, wow, yeah, I saw a few move-ins float. So that's one. Have goals that you're trying to hit because those motivate you to change. And then the second thing is I like year over year for trend because the
Mm.
business is seasonal. Any given month is very consistent. The first week is going to predict where you're going to end up. But seasonally, we do have differences. So I'm looking seasonally, definitely for changes in the big things, move-ins, move-outs, leads. How do I compare to a year ago? That's my
Mm.
main
Mm-hmm.
touch point. And then within that, I will also look though, we have a couple sites that are fairly close to each other. So we'll look at what is happening in the Central Kitsap. What's happening in this little trade area? Is this up? Is this down? And are there any differences? Because a lot of times those can then point you to things that are happening. Oh yeah, you know what? We had a manager call out sick. We didn't have any in the office all week. Okay.
Mm.
Maybe there's all kinds of reasons you could see conversion drop. Okay. That you can kind of get a rhythm to. You could also, if you're looking at it the same way, you can see wow, conversion's really high at the beginning of the month because people rolled over from the prior month, and I now see a really super high conversion. So you kind of get used to the way those metrics move around. Within a period, I will look within the year, but because we forecast for the whole year, I'm more looking how am I doing relative to my forecast.
Okay. Yep, that's super helpful. Thank you. Um, Next question, Tommy. Which one do you want to
Let's
go
see.
with?
Let's do I think Jaden had one. Oh yeah. So this is very specific though, Andrew, and we all get bombarded with this. I mean, I think daily I probably get 20, 30 spam calls to my cell phone, right?
Yes.
Jaden's
Yeah.
question was, we get so many spam calls and we set up an auto receptionist. Is there more problems with people going through with the phone prompts than it takes to answer all the scam calls. So how do you balance
Wow.
that, right? Because no one likes to like press one for sales,
Yeah.
press two for managers, right? We're
Yeah.
like, because it's so much more convenient to ring, ring, ring. Oh, wow, a real human answer, right? Like it's a pattern
Yeah.
interrupt in a very positive way. So yeah, so how do you balance that?
Um, I think it's an ongoing thing, and I think you'll always be moving back and forth a little bit on the spectrum here. Where we've landed for now, though, is because I want to get those calls recorded, you need to disclose that right up front. And so we
Mm.
do have a few, um, you do have to press one or two buttons, and then also we do our best, and we to roll the call over to our internal call center, and then we have an external call center as well. It does there is some hold time involved in there, and that's just inevitable with the technology today. Um, I'd say the things you can do though, probably a lot of people are on the VoIP phones or those kinds of things. Make sure you're keeping that app that goes with that client on your site phone, so that if you're out on property, you can see it ring and it can ring there, because all those can now ring multiple places, and
Hmm.
whether it's Google Voice or any of the other kind of white label. We use Intermedia, but there's all kinds of them out there that you can use. So I guess I've landed on the side that it's a little bit more of a. This is where knowing the customer though. Um,
Hmm.
if I'm in a place where I need storage, and I've looked at your Google reviews and Google business page, I've decided to call you. I've hit call off Google. This is something I need to get off my to-do list. If it's another 5 or 10 seconds, I'm probably going to stick with the call. Um,
Yeah.
if I'm booking a reservation because I run out to lunch with somebody, I may not. But I think once I've committed the call, they're probably going to stick with it, and they're going to go through with it. So that's where I think having a little bit longer to get it set up right so you can record it, or it can go to
Yes.
someone who can talk to you. But eventually it has to be a human.
I think it's kind of like our websites. You don't want to have to click 15 times to find the rent button, right? You
Yeah.
you want that to be fairly simple. And as a consumer, when I make a phone call to a company, I expect that an actual person isn't going to be the first
Mm.
thing to answer.
Yep.
But I don't want to have to listen to 15 different messages and do 15 different prompts
Yeah.
to actually get to a person, because then it feels like you're just being run in a circle. So I think prompts are great, but use them as
Sparingly.
minimally as possible. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
kind of like it's exactly like measuring your clicks on your website. How many clicks am I going to make them go through to get to the step that they actually wanted? How many prompts am I going to make them go through to get to the person they're actually trying to hear? So make sure you're thinking of it in those terms, but the use of prompts is actually really good. Shannon mentioned earlier, there's a lot of information that you gather from prompts because
Yeah.
you know why the customer's calling
Yeah.
with that information. So they're good to use. Just use them as sparingly as you can.
And then just to go back to, experience your own product, call from not your regular phone, call from somebody else, just go through the experience a couple of times.
Yeah.
Have somebody call your phone a few times. Have somebody we do
Hmm.
the spot check thing. Hey, how's it working? If there's or if you look in your weekly thing, like, man, there's no leads at that site. Let me call them. I've stopped more than once, but what's going on?
Hmm.
That's weird. Let me call them. Is the
Yes.
phone not ringing? Is something down that I don't know about? So yeah.
Yeah, it's like looking in the mirror and then also asking your wife to have spinach in my teeth. I think that's the
It's a
uh
good.
so
Yeah.
two more questions. They're both related. So one was emailed to us by Carrie before the show, and then Stacy asked it during lobby talk, and I want to make sure we get your take on this, right? So I'll read
Okay.
Carrie's question here. So we have a property in an undersupplied market. However, there are a few REITs, and our location is a bit out of the way. We have been keeping our prices slightly lower and always have for promotion, but have not been able to fill up units. Would appreciate any insights you have in this scenario. So essentially, to summarize, they have a lease-up facility,
Yeah.
relatively undersupplied, but there are REITs, and they're trying to go toe-to-toe with pricing. Any insights you can give them? And Stacy's question in the comments during lobby talk was similar, was basically, how do you compete against REITs when they're bottoming out rates, they're giving away units? Like, how do you actually go toe-to-toe when Extra, Public, Cube, and all those guys are just really being very aggressive price-wise?
Right.
Talk to us.
Yeah, that's first of all, that's a tough situation, right? I'm not, it's hard to compete against that. And if people are really crushing the price, it's a tough place to go. I think I would go for some learn by doing and first be effective, then be efficient. And I'd basically take one store and get super aggressive on price myself just to see if it worked, or a couple of unit types or that kind of thing. I'd go all the way down there for a second and see what happened for, I don't know, a month. Because if you really think about it, you're not going to be giving up that much revenue. And maybe you're not going to go after the price in the same way that they will as aggressively, but you could be really transparent about what you're going to do. So I would get super aggressive on price in a subsection, in a kind of contained little test of my own and see what happened. And then decide how I want to work it so it's consistent with my business and my practice, because your alternative is just to be patient and wait, and that may not be as viable for you. So I think I would get aggressive on price first, and then I would start thinking about, okay, price is kind of the cheat code in marketing, and it's the one I like to go to last. But if that's the only thing you've got, go for it, and then but do it in a way that you can really learn from it, and do it in a smaller way, and then start thinking about what are the things I can put into my product that are going to be more appealing or work harder. We have RV spots at some of our sites that people drive 10, 15, 20 miles to get because there's really not many covered RV around us. So are there
Mm,
things that you can offer? It's a little harder, it may be a longer term thing. Are there opportunities for you to make your product better than theirs and make that and be able to easily and quickly communicate that essentially online?
that's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's a quick take
Yeah.
without doing much more.
And I'll add to it. Like, don't assume that just because they also offer the same amenity that it's not worth you talking or talking it up,
Mhm.
right? The fact that you offer a unique 6-digit gate code to every customer, sure, Extra Space probably does it too, but it's a great selling point that your customer might not know is standard to our industry.
Or Tommy, building that number one feature consistently in SSA demand study is what?
Pest control,
24 by
baby,
7 access
and
is one of the
24
ones
by
that
7. Yes.
20. So you
Yeah.
can, like, it may not be something you want to do or you're in love with, but if it's your choice is creating your rates or offering that in a subset of units in a way that you can, even if there's extra operational costs, you'd be like, huh, well, if that's the number one thing, let me see if I can go find some people. The other thing I would do is look more longer term, like, are there segments I can appeal to locally that they can't? Is
Mm,
there local marketing, community marketing kind of referral programs that I can get to? That's harder on a new place, but those are all opportunities. But I think I would at least take my rates down and see, because if it turns out it doesn't move, then that tells you something too. Like, oh, it's actually an awareness problem for the whole site. I got something else I need to go do.
yes, 100%. And Michelle says being local is very important to our customers, and I think that is
That's
a
very
Yeah.
true.
that's very true. I mean, there are a lot of customers. It's not every customer that cares, but the ones who do, the fact that you are local, say it, shout it out,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and look no further. I mean, you can check out Andrew's own their brand, reliablestorage.com. You can see for yourself like how they go and
Locally owned since 1981. It's
there
kind
you
of
go,
our
baby. There
primary
you go.
thing. Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
well, yeah. So, Melissa, any other questions that you want to make sure we get to
Gosh.
before I jump into question of the week?
I think question of the week is good. I
Okay.
think we talked around a lot of these others already,
We
so
did. We did. All right, Andrew, you ready? This is Rapid
Okay.
Fire
Bring it.
Thunderdome. Question of the week. What are your top three rapid fire tips for boosting occupancy? The cheapest, the easiest, and the best.
All right. The cheapest is going to be uh, getting to selling better, right? By far. When the phone rings, selling your own stuff better. That's the single best thing you can do. The easiest is cutting price. Absolutely.
mm-hmm.
It's the easiest thing to do is cut your price, put a bigger concession out, go low. Uh, the best, I think, is actually offering something unique and different, and selling that. Don't sell storage, sell a solution, and be extraordinary at
Yeah.
Woo. So give me that three again. So cheapest is
it. Is getting basically getting better at your sales
doing better
calls,
at sales.
in person,
Answering the
phone and
phone.
walk-in.
Answering the phone.
Answer the phone probably is the cheapest.
Yes.
Answer the
Number
phone.
two
If you're on,
is
yeah.
the easiest is lowering your rates.
Lowering your
And
rates.
then long term, the best is actually offering something that differentiates.
Yes.
Um, Beautiful
Love
advice.
that.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Andrew, I know you are a daytime self-storage owner operator, but in case people do want to reach out to you for tips, advice, want to learn about your background, learn about how they can, run their business like Reliable runs their business, how do people reach out to you?
Yeah, great. You can, I'll throw it in the chat. Andrew at Reliable Storage. I'm on LinkedIn, Andrew Sherrard, so you can find me there. I'm the only storage operator with CMO in my background. So
You're the only one I know, that's for darn sure.
as far as I
Uh,
know.
so fantastic, y'all. I'll put a link to Andrew's LinkedIn here in case y'all want to connect with him online. He's a fantastic guy. I've gotten a chance to know Andrew for many years now, and one of the more fun. Every time I get to hang out with you, Andrew, is one of the more fun conversations I have.
We enjoy our pug pack time too, Tommy. It's been great to be a part of your team, and you guys do great work. The stuff you do here to share, the content is super high quality. I'm really pleased to be able to contribute back a little bit, and I've learned so much from everybody. I've enjoyed it, and Garrett, you do awesome, and Melissa, fantastic to get to see you in person this year, and
Yeah.
looking forward to working with you going forward. So thank you. It's
Yep.
just been
Sounds great.
fantastic.
Sounds great.
It's so much fun. So y'all, you'll see Melissa and I next time, a month from now in June, making technology work for you. This is our tech. Every year we try to sneak in a legal conference, legal session, several marketing sessions,
Hmm.
operations, and then this one is our tech session of the year. This one's going to be really fun. We're going to talk about different kinds of technology from very basic tech, like I would say, well, basic, like, you mentioned one is like the VoIP call, the phone systems, right? That's
Yeah,
a type of technology that is overlooked. And, but honestly, like a lot of folks I see on these Facebook groups, they're blown away that they don't have to carry three iPhones.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right?
yeah,
Like you can
Yeah.
get Ring Central or
yeah,
Call Potential or some of these other
yeah,
platforms where you don't have
yeah.
to carry a physical phone. Uh, but we're also going to talk about fancy tech like property management software, gate access, and also do a little deep dive into some AI stuff as well. So this will be a fantastic session. We're going to announce the speakers soon, so be on the lookout for that. But it's June 26th. You'll see Melissa and I. And so have fun. This session will be posted online sometime today. It'll be live on our YouTube page. It'll be live on the Gabfocus Self Storage podcast, wherever you get those podcasts. And if you're just antsing to watch all the past episodes because you love Gabfocus, check out the StoragePug YouTube channel. This is where all the sessions have been uploaded. You can watch Stephanie Tharp. You can watch Mark. You can watch John Chang. Every time we've had John on the episode, it's on YouTube now. So
Oh
check that
gosh.
out.
Oh, that's cool. That's
Yeah, and then
great.
if you want to check out the Gap Focus Self Storage podcast, let's go. You can go grab every link off of Lighthouse website here. I'll put it right here in the section there. So yeah, if you are on the road and you don't have YouTube Premium and you just want to put your headphones on, podcasts are the way to go. Melissa, I always have so much fun hanging out with you.
Uh, yeah, this
Um,
was great. Thank you
yeah,
so much, Andrew. It was
learned
Thank
awesome.
you guys. Good
learned a
stuff.
lot
Appreciate
today,
it.
and honestly, last comment here, call for speakers. So we're about to roll out the 2025 second half of the year sessions. Really excited about that, which means that we're going to be planning the 2026 season shortly. So if
Hmm.
you're in the audience, you're kind of like Andrew, who've watched dozens of episodes, either live or on the podcast, and you feel like you have something to say, or you feel like you have something you'd love to contribute back to the community, shoot me an email, tommy@storagepug.com, and tell me what you would love to talk about and what makes you
Yeah.
qualified. And Melissa and I will just add you to our list, and would love to plug you at some point. So, but y'all, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your May, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Yeah.